Hey there, Agile adventurer. Just a quick question. What if, for the price of a fancy coffee or half a pizza, you could unlock over 700 hours of the best Agile content on the planet? That's audio, video, e-courses, books, presentations, all that you can think of. But you can also join live calls with world-class practitioners and hang out in a flame war-free and AI slop-clean Slack with the sharpest minds in the game. Oh, and yes, you get direct access to me, Vasco, your Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. No, this is not a drill. It's the Scrum Master Toolbox membership. And it's your unfair advantage in the Agile world. So if you want to know more, go check out scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. That's scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. And check out all the goodies we have for you. Do it now. But if you're not doing it now, let's listen to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from the West Coast in the US is Bernie Maloney. Hey, Bernie. Welcome to the
Vasco.
show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So Bernie has helped teams grow businesses to beyond 4 billion in revenue, I imagine, a year, delivering products from consumer electronics to network infrastructure, services and payments, and I bet beyond. He helps clients achieve performance breakthroughs with their teams, organizations, and themselves, and believes that leads both to outrageous effectiveness. So that's really, really high effectiveness and a whole lot more fun. And that second part is actually a very important aspect of great, or as we call them sometimes, high-performing teams and organizations as well. So, Bernie, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
A little bit more about myself. I'm actually a mechanical engineer by training, so I come at this very, very differently. I've got some other aspects of my background that play into how I approach this. And so that the question of like, how did I come about this is a good lead in that like allows me to rope it all in. I didn't know it, but I had been practicing in Agile for about 8 years before I heard the words Agile or Scrum. So I joined the consumer PC division at HP in the late 90s, the very late 90s, as consumer PCs were starting to really boom. And there's a very dynamic environment. And it's a fun environment to talk about because it's got a lot of constraints that software don't. And so when people say, you can't use this stuff for hardware, I'm like, no, I've done it. And I've done it like at pretty big scale. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, PCs were desk-side PCs. They had a lot of sheet metal in them. Sheet metal takes about 14 months from the time you start tooling until you can have product into retail. Motherboards take about 9 months, but the shelf life of consumer PCs is only about 3 months because Intel changes their roadmap every 3 months, which meant, really inspect and adapt environment. The leaders in that division recognized that they needed to do something differently. And so they ran everything with weekly iterations of a plan. So everything we did there maps to Scrum. Now, I could talk about it like we had distributed teams, volume manufacturing in Asia, engineering here in Silicon Valley. Go-to-market for Europe was in Grenoble, France. We had high volumes. Some of our products would have over 100,000 units in a single model. High complexity. When I started, we shipped 6 products a quarter. We grew to 20 in the US. By the time I left after 8 years, we were doing 200 products a quarter in Europe alone. Okay. Tight timelines, like I mentioned. Now, the timelines are even tighter because if you didn't get things in when you said you would, it wasn't like you missed 1 week of your addressable market. It was more like you missed 30% of your addressable market. So real high penalty for coming in late and tight margins. So most technology products want to have a 20 to a 30% gross margin. On a good day, we had an 8% gross margin. For some of the products that we ship around Christmas time, 2% gross margins. We'd refer to it as we were shipping rotting bananas. that if we made the call wrong, we would need to put $20 to $100 discounts. We called it stapling $20 to $100 bills on every single unit to discount them, to move them out before the next models that were already on a ship coming across an ocean landed. And we did all that with weekly iterations of a plan with all that complexity. It was magical, Vasco. Okay. It was the most fun I had, to that point in my career. And as I was in that division, HP decided to build a TV division. Now, HP actually shipped TVs. If you go look it up, the HP MediaSmart 3760 was the very first internet connected TV, even before Apple TV shipped. It was a bomb. I could talk about why, but that's immaterial. And as that division was folding right as the 2008 recession hit, my boss there said, you really should take a look at this Agile and Scrum stuff. Now, at about that same point in time, I started studying something called neuro-linguistic programming. There are people who love it. There's people who hate it. I'm somebody who loves it. And NLP is a way of really structuring language well and communicating very clearly. That's one of the ways you can look at it. One of the things it teaches is if you can find the words to describe a pattern, you can repeat the pattern. And so I knew I had so much fun there, and I had these tools with NLP. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to do more of this stuff. So when I found Agile, I was like, this is the language for what we did in that consumer PC division. And that kind of started me on my path. So I just got lucky. I got lucky at that point. So I had been a program manager at HP. Not really.
Program manager is like a project manager for large and complex endeavors.
That's a pretty decent, my title was actually system manager because I had business responsibility for $1 billion a quarter product line. And I was really helping the teams coordinate. So it was kind of a combination of Scrum Master, a combination of product owner in what I was doing. As the 2008 recession hit, HP let me go, and I had to figure out how to reinvent myself. I eventually landed at TiVo, who liked my background in video and wanted to bring some of these new ways of working into TiVo. And when TiVo let me go, look, average tenure here in Silicon Valley for the 30 plus years I've been here is 18 to 24 months. Okay, so it's unusual to have long tenures in Silicon Valley because people will change jobs either voluntarily or involuntarily after about that point in time. So it's still uncomfortable when it's involuntary. I'll let you know that because that's
it's always uncomfortable for sure.
And I was approached by a recruiter who said, do you know anybody who would fit this? And it was for an Agile coach. And I looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, I could do that. And so I went and interviewed for it. Didn't get the position, but it gave me language for what is it that I really do? Because people didn't have the language for running teams independently like that point at that point in time. And so it gave me language and structure. I eventually landed a position as an Agile coach with another organization. And that really started me on the path here.
So one of the things, like listening to this wonderful and varied story of how you came across the concept even before you had the language, as you just said, one of the things that I'm interested in understanding better is that when you look at that career that is so diverse, what do you consider that is a kind of, I guess we could call it a pivotal mistake that you made that kind of informed how you took on these approaches, these practices from that moment on? So Bernie, tell us the story of that moment.
Ooh, I've got actually a couple if I can work them in. So one of the stories I like to tell about, and it's about psychological safety, comes out of HP. The division they knew like tight margins, tight timelines, like I described, that things would go sideways. So they actually had an ethic of make new mistakes. And that really established if you make an honest mistake, you'll be forgiven. Just don't make it again. Get the lesson. And Vasco, I could tell you the story of the weekend I blew $1 million of HP's money. And I was forgiven. Okay, it was not a comfortable situation, mind you, but I was actually forgiven. That really sat with me because it really embodied for me what psychological safety is in an organization. So that's been a big thing. one of the positions I took after HP, I was in an organization where there wasn't a lot of psychological safety. There was some distrust between management and the teams. And I was brought in to help the teams come up to speed on Agile. So I was being a Scrum Master with them. There were product owners in the organization. The managers really wanted to come into the retrospectives. And I knew that was going to compromise psychological safety because there was already a pretty strong level of distrust. So I had to get creative. This is a big part of what Scrum Masters have to do. They have to get creative. It's not just follow the book. It's you learn a set of tools and then you got to learn how to apply the tools in the situations that you're in. So the compromise that I struck was have the team hold the retrospective without management in the room, but save a little bit of time at the end. Then with the team still in the room, invite management in, and then somebody in the team anonymize what the team found. So the stuff that was getting in their way, because honestly, that management team, their heart was in the right place. They wanted to help the teams. And that's what you have to get people to see, is you have to get management to recognize that they can criticize something, but they need to criticize the situation, not the people. And you got to coach the people that it's about the situation, not your performance. And so by doing a debrief of the retrospective in front of the team knew nobody was going to get thrown under the proverbial bus, so that they had good psychological safety. So those are a couple of difficult situations that I've had to handle.
So one of the things that comes, first of all, always make a new mistake. That's a great mantra, right? Like don't make a mistake, make a new mistake, because that also speaks to creativity, discovery, insights. If we put the retros in, then also improvement and so on and so forth. And the way that looks, that kind of feeds into the next story, which is always make a new mistake. Now, when you did that strategy of having the retro with the team first and then the presentation for the managers, you were aiming for something positive, psychological safety, but you didn't know. There was no way you could know how the managers would react to that, and would the anonymization of the input really be possible and practical and all of that. But this also speaks to, okay, I've made the mistake of letting the managers in. I know the consequence of that. So I can't make that mistake. I've done it already. Let's make a new mistake. Maybe this won't work, but at least it's not what I already know doesn't work, right? And I think that also kind of being humble towards the future is a very important tool for us in that context, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what's happened in the past. So let's try something else. And then the way I often phrase it is like, let's do an experiment, right? If it doesn't work, we'll change it.
Yes, that's one of my favorite techniques. Let's run an experiment, because people are going to be willing to deal with something so long as they know it's going to end. Now, the other thing you have to do is at the end of the experiment, you need to actually plan to do a retrospective. How did it go? What would we do differently the next time? And then I coach people, now let's run another experiment. It's just like start daisy chaining them. And there's times where I've heard people say it. I've done it a little bit myself in some engagements, where you can use retrospectives to inspect and adapt your way to everything else.
Absolutely. Use retrospectives and then you inspect and adapt to everything else that you will need. Some of it is in Scrum, some of it is something new that you need to develop in the context. Thank you for sharing those stories with us, Bernie.
Welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, I hope you liked this episode. But before you hit next episode, here's the deal. This podcast is powered by people like you, the members who wanted more than just inspiration. They wanted real tools and real connection to people who are practicing Agile every day. We're talking access to over 700 hours of Agile Gold, CTO level strategy talks, summit keynotes, live workshops, e-courses, deep dive interviews, books, and if you're into no estimates, we got the pioneers of no estimates in those deep dive interviews as well. Agile business intelligence, creating product visions, coaching your product owner courses, you name it. You'll get invites to monthly live Q&As with Agile pioneers and practitioners, plus a private Slack community, which is free of all of that AI slop you see everywhere, and of course, without the flame wars. It's a community of practitioners that want to learn and thrive together. It's the best place to connect with community and learn together. So if this podcast has helped you before, imagine what you will get from this podcast membership. So head on over to scrummastertoolbox.org/membership and join the community that's shaping the future of Agile. And we have so much for you. So check out all the details at scrummastertoolbox.org/membership, because listening is great, it's important, but doing it together, that's next level. I'll see you in the community Slack. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.